Starting morning again.
Mm-hmm.
So this is your third day of this?
Second.
Second? Is it the nightmare that you expected, or did you expect the nightmare?
No, it's been okay. I'm a little bit out of sorts at the moment, but it's been okay.
You've not really wanted to do a whole lot of press in the past. As a director, I guess you now have to.
No, I've done a lot of press. I feel like I have this conversation with everybody I ever get interviewed with. It's like this. It's like I do a lot of press. I'm here doing this. I do this for every movie. I've traveled around the world for every movie. You can look online and see 5,000 interviews with me. And for some reason, every time I sit down with someone, they say, "You don't do a lot of press." It's like, man, come on, stop it, or I don't know what I have to do. I'm serious. It's like driving me crazy right now.
It's a dancing monkey thing, I guess. We're just used to something else. I don't know.
Well, there's like, it's just that there's all this sort of stupid mythology about people that just gets perpetuated constantly, you know, and people decide something about someone and then it doesn't ever change, you know, and it isn't really even based on anything, because there isn't a time at any point in my movie career where I haven't done press for a movie, you know, ever.
Yeah.
Starting with Malkovich, every movie since then.
Does the mythology, I mean, you're clearly not in love with the mythology at the moment.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I just feel like I constantly have to tell people that I do press, and it's always very weird when I have to tell people that I do press when I'm sitting there doing press with them, you know? I mean, and I go to the round tables, and every time I sit down, it's like, you don't do press? It's like, I'm sitting here with 40 reporters. I've just done 40 over there. You know, what
I guess we're all in the seeking the virgin constantly as press people.
You're what?
We're all seeking the virgin. We're all looking for...
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the problem, is when people start to look for an angle on someone or something to sort of like hang on. It's like, you know, there's no angle. I'm just a pissy little guy, you know? That's all I am.
So
at the moment, anyway.
It'll pass.
It will, probably. Unfortunately, it's being committed to videotape, but what are you going to do?
So why this picture to start directing? Why is this the beginning of that particular adventure?
Because it was available and it was time and I wanted to. So
it seems almost like the most personal pictures, because it seems to be almost Ouroboros eating Ouroboros in a way. You have the layers of things within the story, within the storytelling.
Well, I always do the layers, I guess. That seems to crop up a lot. Mm-hmm. But there isn't really a way out of this movie, I guess, is why it feels maybe more personal, is that there's no kind of conceit that sort of like makes it okay at the end, you know. It sort of like is what it is, and it goes where it goes, and it's sort of the inevitable passage of time, with no sort of you know, ribbon at the end, I think. But I mean, they're all personal to me. That's all I've done. That's all I want to do. And, you know, I wrote it when I was at a different place when I wrote anything else, which is inevitable. I too am moving through time. Yeah. And so I try to be truthful, and I try to do what I can to put something in the world that is not garbage.
So do the collaborators you pick when you're selling, I mean, you've had collaborators in the past, obviously. You've had directors you've worked with very closely. But here you're picking your DP and you're picking your actors. And does that have to be, as a first-timer, is that precise? Or did you feel confident that you kind of knew what you were doing walking onto the set the first time? And you were in charge and that was that?
Wait, I didn't understand. Precise? What do you mean?
Well, it's. I mean, I always say one of the keys to every director is the people they choose to work with. That's the first choice you make, and perhaps the most important choice you make. So, I mean, did you go in treading carefully, or did you just leap in with full confidence?
To hiring these people, or after I hired them?
To working with them ultimately?
I wasn't really nervous. Surprisingly, I wasn't really nervous going into making this movie. I just kind of felt like I wanted to do it, and it was time, and it was okay if I failed. You know, it's just I think that made it easier. And you know, and then once you start working on a movie, it's pretty relentless, and so you don't really have time to do anything but work. You know, and everything is kind of there, and you have different things different obstacles you need to get over every day, and then the next day is the same, and then the next day is the same, and that's how you get through the days. And I wasn't intimidated by it, and I did have good people I worked with, and that was important, and I think it's always important, but it was important to me, and I had the cast that I wanted, and that was important, and I didn't have the money that I needed, but we did it anyway, and that was the hardest part, was trying to figure out how to do this with a very, you know, for what we were trying to accomplish, a limited budget.
Big visuals in this.
It's a lot of effects, and you know, a lot of actors, and a lot of locations, and 204 scenes, which is about twice as many as a standard movie has. So you know, it was a lot of work, a lot of prosthetics, you know, all this sort of. It was definitely a trial by fire for me. You know, I learned a lot, obviously. Probably, you know, the most I've ever learned in 45 days in my life.
And was it easier because you had, say, Catherine, who you already knew? And
Easier. It's always easier to have Catherine. No, and it is. She's not because she's my friend. It's easier because she's so good and generous in her acting, you know, and we shot Catherine scenes with Phil first, and they know each other from Capote, and they're friends, and I think it really helped everybody to do those scenes first. I mean, Phil, you know, they love each other, and they work together so well, and we established this relationship, which is the basis for everything else that happens in the movie. And it was kind of interesting in a way because the fact that the movie was so the experience of making it was so dense. You know, Catherine was there for the first 2 weeks, and then she was gone, and then we just kept going. You know, Phil and I, and it was like, you know, it was 4 weeks into the movie, and we're thinking, you know, I said to Phil, God, it feels like Catherine's been gone forever, you know? And obviously that served the character really well. And so it was a fortuitous decision to shoot those scenes first.
And is Phil as much of a pleasure? I mean, I'm very aware of his theater and everything else, and how he really nurtures actors, and, you know, he's created this community around him, and how important that is to him. Does that translate to working with him on this movie?
Well, I haven't worked with him in that other capacity, so I'm not sure what that is. But I mean, the thing about Phil is that, like I said, he's well, I don't know if I said this to you actually. He's in 202 of the 204 scenes in this movie, and it's an enormous burden that he has in this thing, and he's very, very committed. When, you know, Phil's not a guy who multitasks. And so when you're trying to get a hold of him when he's working on something else, he's doing something else. But the other side of that is when he's there, he is there, and it's real, you know, and what he's going through on screen is so felt that it's painful. You know, it's painful doing it. It's not fun, but it's what it is. But it's what it is. You know, it's what you need. It has to understand everything that he's doing, and then everything he's doing. And once he's there, everything he does is true, and it's beautiful. And he thinks that, you know, he's told me that he thinks acting in movies is what happens the first time, on the first take. You know, as opposed to theater, where it's a kind of a repeated process, and it's a growing process. It's like you're trying to capture this thing, and there's a truth and a spontaneity that comes in the first thing, and so we didn't we didn't do a lot of takes. We didn't need to do a lot of takes. I mean, we had to sometimes and had to cover the scenes and stuff. But Phil just really performs beautifully and delivers, and yes, so it was a joy working with him.
And when you're behind that camera and you've already heard words of yours come to life, but now you have that, complete control of the situation. Is that a feeling that's a different kind of feeling, or a greater kind of feeling?
Greater than
being on somebody else's set.
I don't think it's a great feeling. I don't think it was ever a great feeling. I mean, I don't take that as a great feeling to hear my words performed. It's like I don't even know what that means. I mean, I think
embody what you were imagining. I mean, is it?
It doesn't. It can't. I mean, it can't. It's because it's an extension of it, and it's in the future. When I'm imagining it, it exists on a piece of paper and in my head. When other people come in, actors, the rest of the people, the designers, it becomes something else. It becomes an interpretation of a large group of people that kind of come together and create this thing, and so it's expansive. I mean, it's people often say, well, is this what you pictured when you? It's like, well, how could it be? How could it ever? In fact, if it were, it would be a disappointment in a way, because it's like it becomes more.
Right.
And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to keep it alive when you're on the stage. You're trying to keep it. You don't want it to be set in some way so that it's just sort of by rote kind of, Xerox version of a script. It should be a living, breathing thing, and you really want to strive for that.
Have you had the experience where it becomes less for you, or does that you just throw that aside as part of it?
It doesn't become less. It becomes other sometimes, and sometimes it becomes other in ways that I'm not getting what I feel like I need. There's issues like that where you have to kind of. But that's still part of it. That's still part of figuring out. Okay, well, what is it that's not happening here? You have chemistry between people that is based on not what you wrote. It's based on what is, and you deal with that. I mean, your job is to figure out what is here, and how do I make that now be what I need it to be, and that's pretty evident, and you work on it, and you work with, you've got really good people around you and really talented actors who are working really hard, and you get something. If you're open to it, you get something exciting, you get something new.
As a screenwriter, it seems it took a little bit of time for people to kind of figure out. I mean, you were always, from the very first script, kind of celebrated as a great writer, but not necessarily produced so quickly,
right,
or so safe. And now it's kind of, you are an icon, really, of screenwriting. You become a genre in a way, and now others are compared to you when they write and take similar ideas that you've worked with.
Uh-huh.
Is that good, bad? Is it healthy? Do you feel a need to try to go somewhere else, or?
I'm always trying to go somewhere else. I've never tried to repeat myself. I mean, my goal is always just figure out how to try to do something that I don't know how to do. I'm always taking on that challenge when I start something new.
Do you work a lot in structure, or is it reactive?
I'm not sure what that means.
I mean, are you laying out, cards and trying to figure out exactly how the structure is going to work, and this is the, or are you really telling a story and then figuring out how the pieces fit better together as you rewrite and rewrite?
I don't think there's any distinction between structure and story. I think that they're two parts of the same thing. And I think if your story and your structure don't reflect each other, then you're not doing your job, I don't believe in the idea that there is a structure that movies have and that you need to sort of adhere to it. I think you look at what it is you're trying to express and you figure out how to use it. I mean, structure of something obviously is enormously important, but it's no different than any other act. It's no different than trying to figure out a character or a time frame or anything like that. They're all the same thing. I don't work in a scientific way. I work in a kind of I think a lot about themes and relationships and things that I'm worried about in my life, and I spend a lot of time before I ever write anything. I mean, I take notes, but I I don't like try to then write a script.
Right.
And that comes really late in the process for me.
So as a director and writer on this picture, is there more flexibility in the script? I mean, it would seem like your concepts are so tight and it's so specific that it'd be very hard to improvise a lot. It'd be very hard to kind of go off book and try different things.
Well, I mean, some of that's a function of time. I mean, we don't, we had a really tight schedule, but there's definitely improvisation going on the set, and some of it we use and some of it we don't. I try to get everything that's in the script, committed to film, and but people do things and it's fun or it's funny or it's moving, and if it works in the film, it's something I'll definitely use.
Did you go off and rewrite at night between dailies, or?
I did write one scene later in the process because I had a moment that was kind of ill-defined for me. I wanted to do something with a choreography that I didn't really have time to do in one scene, and so I wrote a speech at the last minute, hired an actor, and did this without. I mean, it ended up being something that's very, very successful in the movie. People really like, but it was not in the original script. So
where did the Samantha and Emily duality, was that a kind of casting fun, or had you had that in mind when you wrote it, or? No,
I don't have actors in mind when I write.
Because it's so very, I mean, it's like for people who are into independent film and for international film, it's like kind of, it's almost like the nature of the beast. Like, people are always mistaking the two of them for each other. Yeah, I mean, I felt, I mean, that's not I didn't know that other people did that, and I haven't mistaken them for each other, but I did see something. I've always seen something between them that struck me as similar. And I don't even know exactly what it is because they're really not similar. Right.
But and consequently, both of them have told me that this has happened to them in their lives. That confusion from other people. So that's why I did it, and not only that, but they're like two of my favorite actresses. So it's like. It was a dream for me to be able to send them scripts and have them say they wanted to do this movie,
But is that the process? Was that the process for you on this, that you just kind of sent scripts to the people you wanted? And
it was exactly the process. I mean, and pretty much everybody that I wanted to be in the movie is in the movie, So it was like, it worked out really well. It was like, it's all my favorite actors.
Do you see that as a unique proposition? I mean,
I have no idea. You mean unique to me or unique to?
Unique to the industry. It's pretty rare that anybody gets the, pick of the litter. The situation.
I don't know. We've had pretty good luck on the movies that I've worked on, getting the cast that we want. So, I don't have the experience of that not happening.
Right.
But this is a very large cast, and but it was fun. It's really fun to get to meet Diane Wiest.
The great Diane Wiest.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, come on, man. That's like the coolest thing in the world. It was all so cool. And Samantha and Emily, and I knew Hope and Jennifer because I'd done some plays with them, but that was also cool because I only met them the year before, and they agreed to do these plays. And
how was that experience for you, doing theater?
I loved it, and it was very helpful for me to do that before I did this. Because I got to direct actors and not feel intimidated by the process. Like, I get very nervous around famous people, and the idea that I actually directed Meryl Streep and that she listened to me and was and that the things came out well, it gave me a lot of confidence to be able to do this. I mean, I think it's the most important part of directing. I mean, for me, it's the most important part, is that, I mean, the other stuff can be good or bad, and it'll make the movie better or worse, but you need the actors, and you need to feel the experience, and you can do that on video with no set, and so I felt confident having these people, and that I knew how to talk to them in a way that they seemed responsive to, that I could go ahead and make the movie.
are you a hands-on and are you a precision director in that you know exactly what you want and you want them to conform, or are you there to let great actors do their thing?
I mean, I don't think it's either. I know what I want. I know what I've heard in my head, but then, like I said, you bring people on, and they're people, and they're collaborators, and I think it's an enormously foolish thing not to let these really talented people collaborate with you, you know? So I listen to everything, and I would never give a line reading or anything like that, you know? We talk about things and talk about emotions and try to be on the same sort of plane when we're working, and I see what it is that they're bringing, and then like I said, you sort of like, you reorganize yourself once that happens, and this is who this person is in the movie as an embodiment of a character, and this is who this person is, and what's happening here between them, and what's the dynamic, and what do you need to make it? What do you need to make it? And that's sort of the job, and but you have to, and I do, trust them and rely on them and respect them, you know, and I have to, and I want to, and they need that.
So now you're going through this process of releasing a picture as a director, and it's all the drama of Cannes and all the, you know, I mean, I always think that the film festival circuit is a mixed blessing in that there's a sense of everybody feeling a need to immediately determine what's on the table, and particularly with all of your films, really, you know, it takes a little time to breathe and get a feeling of what, you know, exactly what you're going after, and really to see the movies a couple times, I think, to really kind of begin to understand where you really were, not just take the kind of surface stuff that was away. So, you know, was Cannes a little frustrating? Is going through this process a little frustrating, or
frustrating because
you had some response from people that they weren't sure what to make of the film, they weren't quite sure what was going on, and
I mean, this is another thing that I feel is kind of a sort of mythology and a misrepresentation of what actually happened. I mean, we got really passionately positive reviews out of Cannes. I think we got a few negative things. I think we got a few people who didn't, you know, were perplexed or whatever the word is that. But the idea that it was sort of predominantly confused is just not true. And you know, I mean, Richard Corliss wrote a piece about it, in a very long piece about how it saved Cannes. Right. You know, and calling the movie exhilarating. Todd McCarthy in Variety, who didn't like anything at Cannes, both Corliss and McCarthy said that the film saved Cannes. You know, A.O. Scott wrote a really glowing thing on his blog. London Times gave it 4 stars. Hollywood Reporter wrote their review, said, "We're sorry, Charlie," because there was this sort of like weird perception of it because we tried to sell it before the screening and it didn't sell, and no one put that in any context, which is the context that 8 of the 12 specialty companies went out of business this year, and the ones that are left are trying to find the next indie comedy. Right. You know, it's a very scared marketplace. The movies that do well critically, that are complicated movies and interesting movies, don't do well commercially, haven't done well commercially in the last year, and so everyone's closing up shop. That's what happened. No American movie sold at Cannes. That's never put in any context. You know, so now every time anyone writes about the movie, they describe it as having mixed reviews, they describe it as perplexing, they describe it as the movie that didn't sell until well after Cannes. You know, it's like, what is that? I mean, you know, Ann Thompson and Todd McCarthy, who both write for Variety, have championed this movie. Variety, in its fall preview last week, you know, has the little synopses of the movies, describe this movie as people being perplexed by it. It's just look in your own newspaper, you know, don't have to look any farther than that. But this stuff just keeps getting repeated and repeated, and it's lazy. That's the thing that I found troublesome. I don't know what to do about it. I don't, you know, I left Cannes, I went to Paris, took the train to Paris for a week, and at the train station some guy came up to me, some French guy I think, I'm not sure, he was foreign, he had an accent. He recognized me and told me that, you know, he had seen my movie by accident because he got closed out of another movie he wanted to see. He had no idea what it was, and that this movie I mean, he pretty much said that the movie changed him, you know, and he was so thankful and so grateful. And it was like this anonymous little encounter at a train station, and it washed away Cannes for me, you know. I got this, I got sent this review on IndieWire that happened yesterday, and this guy, I don't know who wrote it. I don't know, because it doesn't seem to have a byline on it, but it's an enormously beautiful review. And I was sitting at dinner last night with Anthony Bregman and Catherine Keener and Phil Hoffman and a couple other people, and Anthony read the thing to us, and it was like, it just softened me, because it was this moved person. That's what the movie is intending to do. I'm choosing to sort of separate myself from the consequences of trying to do that. You know, I'm not going to worry about people being lazy or people being bitter. I don't care if people don't like the movie. I would like people to not like the movie in a serious way, you know, not in a lazy way.
Right. Well, I think that's what gets perpetuated in these festivals and these situations is this kind of the sense of, as I said, the immediate and kind of need to say something. You know, you take a vote amongst 5 people that are standing outside a theater who are, you know, kind of jaded journalists, and all of a sudden that becomes the news story. Yeah. And because there's so few critics left.
There's an enormous responsibility that comes with being a film journalist, because, especially for a movie like this, for a movie that's going to be review driven, because you're really hurting somebody. I don't mean like, you know, my feelings. I mean, you're hurting a lot of people. Worked very seriously on this movie, for example, and put their hearts into it, and to be cavalier about writing a stupid little line about it or a nasty little line about it that can actually affect the future of a piece of work. It's I don't think that people recognize that there's a responsibility on their part in this equation.
I've always said that we should be responsible. We should all have to work. Anybody who wants to be a film journalist should have to go PA on a movie, on one full movie.
Right.
At least have the experience of knowing that there are, you know, scores and hundreds in some cases of people who are making the effort. Because it always drove me crazy, and Roger is really loves film and really cares about film. And Roger and Gene Siskel used to say on the show, "Oh, they just didn't care."
Yeah.
You know, they don't. If somebody had cared about this movie, it could have been a great movie.
Right.
Even the worst movies, somebody.
Well, they're really hard to make. But I just want to say that this has been my life for the last 5 years. I mean, I've started writing this thing 5 years ago, and it's pretty much, it's been my only job. And it's like, you know, for someone to dismiss it with a sentence, it's a crappy thing to do to somebody, you know. And I mean, there are lots of other people who worked really hard on this movie, but I mean, this is like, I'm very serious about what I've done here. I've really tried to do something. And again, I don't care if you don't like it, that's fine. I mean, I welcome it, but take, you know, you've got an hour to spend it sincerely, right. You know, in thinking about it.
Well, I've said, actually, I had the conversation this summer with somebody in the studio about, you know, how you kind of have to lay down the trail of, you know, crumbs to whatever it is and kind of set the tone. And I think that studios and indies also, and at festivals and everything else, that there's the sense of everything moving so quickly, and almost like if you try to get people in the right space to stop and breathe and take in a movie like this, or a lot of movies in this festival. I mean, I've been shocked actually during this festival. There have been very few big movies at the festival, so it's a lot of smaller movies, and the cynicism that has come up with some of the pictures that are warm, anything that it actually makes you feel something, right, seems to now be the bane of the critics. Yeah. And they, you know, that's the thing they hate. They want to like something that's cold and metallic, not touching them in any way, because if it touches them, somehow it's wrong. Right. And I find that infuriating, actually.
You know, when I read criticism of stuff that I've done in the past, the stuff that always surprises me and stands out is the stuff that isn't like that. It's very unusual, but occasionally you'll get a writer who expresses their humanity in their review, like the way I try to do it when I write my screenplays, the sort of like the vulnerability and the brokenness of they often critics write from this sort of like godlike vantage point of judgment, whereas occasionally a reader review, when someone is really affected and expresses that, it's like I think that's an amazing thing to do, and I think it's as rich and important as the other side of it, of making the films, is when someone is really, this is the human community. This is how we try to express ourselves to each other, our humanness, not our importance, and not our, how we're better than you, or how you are an idiot, or
we all got into this as journalists. I think we all got into it because of love at some point. Some people were assigned from the city desk to move over,
right?
But basically, people who write about movies and are critics, got there because they love it. I do think that after you've done it for a while, the constant, parade of junk that you watch and the cynicism of the studios and everything else, you start to kind of get that sheen. It's almost like we all need to take a vacation from ourselves.
Well, I think there is a lot of junk, and I do think it's mostly junk, and I think that's why when you come across something that isn't junk, or is at least trying not to be junk, that it should really be applauded and endorsed, and
even if you think it's a failure. That's what for me.
A failure doesn't really even enter into it, because there's no, I think a failure can be as beautiful as a success.
Yeah.
To me, I much prefer, I think this is what you're saying, much prefer someone, I don't know what failure means, I guess. It sort of becomes irrelevant to me.
And now we have DVDs and we see these movies, the opportunity to see them a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, what we thought was a failure changes oftentimes, I think, and what we thought was the greatest thing ever.
You never watch again.
Well, yeah, who's going to see Batman, The Dark Knight, and go, oh my God, in 6 months? It was beautifully made, it's a well-made movie, all that's true, but is that really the movie that's stirring your soul?
Right, I don't know, I haven't seen it, but I'm imagining probably it isn't, but I don't know.
It's not Sinécdoque.
Sinécdoque.